welcome. Whether it's raining or sunshine outside, it certainly is sunny in here. It's wonderful to look at it all with bright, clear smiles and know the sun is shining. So we're very appreciative for your being here today, and we're particularly happy to tell you we're the first group to use this newly redecorated event room. So we're the first ones to get used it, and what a beautiful job. Thank you so very much. I'm Judy Hayes, Chairman of the Board, and I welcome you. Please rise as we welcome Pastor Michael Williamson with St. Andrew's Lutheran Church to give the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Gracious God, the psalmist reminds us that the eyes of all look to you, and you give them their food in due season. You open your hand, satisfying the desire of every living thing. We give you thanks that others have opened their hands to serve and prepare the meal we are enjoying now. Help us to learn each day to depend upon you for the bread that we eat. Enable us to see the holiness of everyday life as we go about our daily work. God of compassion, guide us with your justice in the workplace so that we may never value things above people or sacrifice honesty and integrity for the sake of profits and power. Prosper efforts to provide meaningful and fulfilling work that enables all people to earn a livable wage. Inspire us to govern the ways of business to the harm of none and for the sake of the common good. As our community continues to experience rapid growth, give us prudence and patience to manage the challenges we face wisely, so your name may be praised in all that we do. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I certainly would like to begin today's meeting by welcoming our new members and guests. We have had 41, get this, 41 new members since our last meeting. Several have joined us today at the new member table here in the front of the room. Please visit with them and join me in welcoming them again, and by all means, remember to do business with them. Today we'd like to thank our membership meeting presenting sponsor, St. Thomas Health. These meetings would not be possible without their general support. Please direct your attention to the screen for a brief word from our sponsor. Something else was happening here. And it's wonderful to know that nothing's impossible. I will end with that. Well, we again would like to thank our meeting hosts, and we appreciate their sponsorship today. With that, I would like to bring the President and CEO, Matt Martin, to the stage for our wonderful program, giving us reasons to love to live in our greatest county in the nation, where we can live, work, play, worship, and just really make great economic growth for all of us. So, Matt.
Thank you, Judy, and good afternoon, everybody here. I'm going to speak a lot slower and use much smaller words today because my sister actually is in the audience for the first time. She wants to tell me that I'm her #1 brother right now. Just tell. But she wants to show me that. So I don't want to pay for that. Thank you, Jessica, for being here. We're done with that. I want to start by thanking Williamson Source again for videotaping our meeting today. I think it's a great asset to have for those who can't make it or want to see this fantastic content I know we're going to have today. So thank you so much for what you all do for the community and for us today with the program. We like to start these meetings by having somebody who's had experience with the Chamber membership talk about what it's meant to them and their business. And in this case, it's a nonprofit. So it's my pleasure at this point to invite Patty Harmon and Susan G. Coleman to talk about how they've used their Chamber membership and what it's meant to them.
Good morning. I like to talk about script, so I was told to keep my script with me today. So I am happy to talk a little bit about what the Chamber membership has meant to Susan G. Coleman. I'm very passionate about the impact of what we can do here as far as Susan G. Coleman and the Chamber. There are many opportunities, and we've taken advantage of many of those. The Chamber has helped us with fundraising and awareness, and that opportunity continues to grow. The Chamber was critical in bringing our annual Race for the Cure to Brentwood 6 years ago. 25,000 people attend that race and are potential customers for that area. In 2013, Williamson County Chamber businesses provided over $139,000 in direct support and in-kind services. That does not even include the teams or the money those teams raised. In 2014, we've already raised $40,000 from the Williamson County Chamber members. There are many opportunities still for Chamber members to get involved, and we encourage you all to do that. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and as many of you know, 1 in 8 women still get breast cancer. Without the Chamber to help us spread the word, we would not have the impact that we do in Middle Tennessee. For those of you who would like to join a team and don't have a team in your business, you can join the Chamber for the Cure team. They have lots of fun, and it's a great way to meet other Chamber members. So thank you, Chamber, for making an impact and helping us fight breast cancer.
Well, thanks, Patty. I appreciate that. And I think that just goes to show one thing, especially for the new members in the room, what you put into your membership is what you're going to get out. So never forget that as you decide what things you're going to do for this next year. And secondly, a strong business community does equal a strong community. And it takes the business community in partnership with the nonprofits, with the education community to make sure we're doing everything we can so this is a prosperous business community for everybody. So thanks so much for the work that you do and all the other great nonprofits in Williamson County. I'm just going to spend just a few minutes talking about a few economic development news items that happened since our last meeting and get as quickly as I can to the speaker because that's why I know that we're all here today. So just a couple things. Since we met last, NerdWallet, which is the premier ranking website of cities since last week, named Franklin #2 city on the rise in Tennessee last week. Great, fantastic. They took data from the last 3 years, population, employment, and income, and those are things we pay attention to as an organization. Now that economic development is part of your chamber, we know there's great, fantastic growth in terms of population. What we want to make sure is that when the people move to town, they're able to find jobs. And not just that it's income rising for everybody. So these are the kind of numbers we pay attention to, and it's great when we get third-party validation on subjective rankings from organizations like this. So it's kind of a silly name, but it's an important ranking for Franklin and for Williamson County. And the next thing I'm going to mention is, if everybody, actually I think you probably got this in your mailbox, all the chamber members got this in your mailbox. This is the cover of our latest magazine from Journal Communications. What's on the cover, though, is Americana's Cross County Lines Festival was held earlier this year. in Williamson County. And it's become a really great brand for Williamson County. You may know that Americana moved their headquarters to the factory a couple of years ago. It's fantastic music. If you came earlier to our event this year, you heard the president speak about what Americana means to Williamson County, Franklin, and the Nashville region. So there was actually an event in New York City a couple of weeks ago. It's called the Out of Doors Festival at Lincoln Center. And they decided to showcase a different genre of music every time they do this. And this year, it was Americana. So in partnership with the Nashville Chamber, the Nashville CVB, we actually went up there, spent a few days in the New York area. In fact, Amanda with our staff got to spend an entire day in New Jersey. So that's a day she'll never get back. But the reason we do this is because these are the kind of these are the groups that we work with who bring companies here. And in fact, if you take a look at the next slide, you see the two people kind of in the corner, it's Dennis and Katie. They actually work with Beretta in their manufacturing facility. So just to give you an idea, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in economic development that you don't see every day. So it's up to us and our staff to go out to the Chicagos, the New Yorks, the Atlantas in the area and keep Williamson County top of mind. Because since Beretta decided not just to open manufacturing here, but move all their manufacturing here, at some point it's reasonable to think that they'll move a headquarters here. So staying in touch with these consultants is exactly what we're doing to help grow this economy of Williamson County. I just want you to know there's some things that happen outside the area too that we're always involved with. So next, it's my pleasure to actually introduce Sean Hanks. He's the president of Premier Speakers Bureau. And I'm really excited about this lunch in particular because it represents the first time we've had this partnership with Premier. It's a fantastic company, headquartered in Williamson County. And now I'm going to introduce Sean, who will be the introduction of our main speaker today. Sean?
Thank you, David. Regular people. I'm privileged to represent a friend, or to introduce a friend and someone we represent the Premier Speakers Bureau. Matt mentioned that. We're literally just down the street from us today. Bruce Tulgan is the founder of RainmakerThinking. It is a research training and consulting firm in New Haven, Connecticut. He's foremost expert on leadership and performance management in the workplace today. Bruce is the author of 19 books. He's a busy man. Some of those are, his first bestseller is It's Okay to Be the Boss. He wrote Managing Generation X, which I'm sure many of you have read. Not everyone gets a trophy. His newest book, which we'll talk about today, releases next month, is the 27 challenges managers face, step-by-step solutions to nearly all of your management problems. Not all, but nearly all. He's often cited or writes for the New York Times, USA Today, HuffPo, all the things that we read on a daily basis. He is a 5th degree black belt, so if you're playing on your phones, he'll come out to the audience. And, he is a 5th degree black belt. He's happily married to another very successful author, a 2007 Pulitzer Prize winning author, Debbie Applegate. Her book, The Most Famous Man in America, is about the 19th century minister, Henry Ward Beecher. Please join me in welcoming Bruce Tulgan.
Thank you so much for introducing me, and thanks to Premier Speakers Bureau, and thanks to Williamson, the Williamson Chamber for having me. A double thanks for mentioning my wife's book. She won the Pulitzer Prize, can you believe that? So, it's my #1 credential. But don't get confused. Her last name is Applegate. We have different last names because I kept my name. They give me a little bit less than 35 minutes, so I hope you'll forgive me if I talk a little bit fast. Let me tell you what I'm hoping to do in that very short amount of time. I'm hoping to give you a little bit of new perspective about your role as a leader of people in your organization. Maybe I could give you even some new ideas. And I'm hoping I can give you some best practices that you can take back with you to the work you do as a leader in your organization to be more effective. But that's it. A couple of new ideas, a little bit of perspective, a couple of best practices. You walk out of here with that much, and I will have succeeded wildly. I realize that by my own measure. believe firmly in establishing methods. So, before I do that, let me just take a minute to tell you a little bit about what it is I do and how I got here. I've spent most of the last 20 years doing research on the front lines of the working community. And our research is a little bit different. Because we do ask some multiple choice questions, but we ask a whole lot more open-ended questions. So we ask people, how do you look at your working life and career? Why do you go work someplace? Why do you leave? No, really, why do you leave? And we keep talking to people as long as they're willing to keep talking to us. So some of our interviews last a couple of hours. A lot of our interviews have been going on since 1993. And that's true, and as you'll see at the end, I'll try to lure you into my interviewee database. But we've done thousands and thousands and thousands of longitudinal interviews since 1993. And one of the questions we've asked hundreds of thousands of people is, tell us what is the most challenging situation you face as a leader. What is the most challenging situation you face as a leader? And of course, we hear a lot of stories when we ask that question. But what's striking is that over and over and over again, we hear the same basic challenges. I've got somebody who does great work, but he works too slowly. How do I get him to speed up? And I've got somebody who works real fast, but she doesn't know how to dot her I's and cross her T's. I've got somebody who's really fast and does great work, but he's got a bad attitude. By the way, let me just give you a little tip right now. If you got somebody with a bad attitude, don't tell that person they got a bad attitude. You want to see a bad attitude get worse? No, I don't miss you. No, I don't miss you. No, I don't miss you. That conversation's going nowhere. In fact, 90% of responses, hundreds of thousands of interviews where we've asked that question, 90% of responses come back to the same 27 challenges. And one of the things we try to do is drill down, like what's really going on? And I'll tell you what our number one finding is after almost 21 years of research. Our number one finding. Are you ready? Are you ready? What would I do if they said no? Maybe let's talk about something else. Okay, so here's our number one finding. It's getting harder to manage people. Yes, we've done 21 years of research. I know some of you were thinking, hey, you could have just called me. And if I've interviewed you and you're in this room, I promise not to reveal your identity. For me, what's more interesting is why is it getting so much harder to manage people? Why? And our research shows it comes down to two reasons. The first reason is that the workplace is becoming more and more high pressure. And the second reason is that the workforce is becoming more and more high maintenance. Everywhere I go, this is what leaders and managers tell us. Leaders and managers tell us, look, I got too many people to manage. And some of the people I manage are in remote locations. Some of the people I manage work a different schedule than I work. Some of the people I manage do task responsibilities that are different from the ones that I've ever done. At least they've changed an awful lot since I've done them. Meanwhile, I'm busy. I'm not just a leader. How many of you here, you're just a leader? Any hands? I got a bunch of my own work to do. I don't have time to hold everybody's hand. Nobody held my hand. Come on, I know you said it. Right, and nowadays you just try to hold their hand. Just try to hold their hand. Especially the youngest, least experienced people coming into the workplace nowadays. Just try to hold their hand. They push back every step of the way. Right? Don't tell me how to do my job. Well, gosh, I'm your boss. I'm pretty sure my job is. Don't micromanage me. No, I'm just playing managing you. We're also going to pay you. If this were an amusement park, there'd be a line outside the door and we'd be selling tickets. things are going wrong in a management relationship, it comes down to the fact that the communication isn't working well. But here's what we've learned. Almost always what happens is we find that whoever's in charge, you look behind the scenes, who's in charge right now? And here's what we find, that underlying almost every management problem is ad hoc, hit or miss, unstructured, mediocre communication. We call it undermanagement. Leaders, managers, and supervisors are just not doing enough leading, managing, and supervising. And the costs of undermanagement are huge. Undermanagement is a problem that hides in plain sight in almost every workplace. And the costs are astronomical. Unnecessary problems occur. Small problems that should have been solved easily get out of control. Resources are squandered. People go in the wrong direction for days, weeks, or months on end on their basic tasks, responsibilities, and projects without even realizing it. Low performers hide out to collect paychecks. Mediocre performers start thinking, hey, maybe I'm one of the high performers. High performers get frustrated and think about leaving. And leaders, managers, and supervisors end up doing tasks, responsibilities, and projects that should have been delegated to someone else. Or maybe they were delegated to someone else. They just come back to you anyway, half done, or done wrong. And you got to do them anyway. What is going on here? Now the good news is that the solution is not some newfangled idea. The solution that we find over and over and over again is to get leaders to go back to the old-fashioned basics. That when we look at what's going wrong in 9 out of 10 workplace problems, it's that leaders have gotten too far away from the old-fashioned basics of leading and supervising. And when leaders get back to the basics, things start going better. Easier said than done, right? I say to leaders, managers, and supervisors, here's what you need to do. You need to make a commitment to high structure, high substance dialogue with every person who reports to you. You need to be able to spell out performance expectations. You need to be able to spell out goals, deadlines, guidelines, and parameters every step of the way. And then you have to monitor, measure, document performance. You got to follow up, follow up, follow up. And you got to keep score. And not everyone gets a trophy. Right? You want a trophy? You got to play our game. By our rules, you got to score points. You score enough points, then you get a trophy. It's not complicated. It's simple. But it's not easy. And when I say to a group of leaders, managers, and supervisors, right, I look at this as a group of business leaders. I ask you, anyone here disagree that the workplace is becoming more high pressure? Anyone here not getting squeezed lately? Raise your hand. Bless you. If you sit next to your boss, keep your phone. How about high maintenance? Anyone here who manages people think the workforce is getting less high maintenance? Any votes for less high maintenance? Right? So what do you suppose that calls for? Weak, hands-off leadership, or strong, highly engaged leadership? Any votes for weak and hands-off? Right? But what if I followed you around? What if I followed you around for a couple of days? Here's what we find. Most leaders, managers, and supervisors in the real world, they're hands off, hands off, hands off, hands off, until something goes wrong. Then they come in and choose someone out, maybe the wrong person at the wrong time about the wrong thing. Then they go back to work thinking, I just did me some managing. And they go right back to being hands off. Why is that? I mean, what leaders tell me every single day is, oh yeah, high structure, high substance communication. Makes sense. Make broad performance standards clear. Okay, spell out expectations. Follow up, follow up, follow up. Monitor, measure, and document performance. Keep score. Reward people only when they're scoring points. Sounds good. But I don't have time for that, buddy. Right? I got my hands full. I will tell you the number one reason that leaders give us, why they don't do this, why they do not roll up their sleeves and take a strong, highly engaged approach to management. The number one thing they say is, I just don't have time for it. Now, there are other reasons. Right? Some leaders buy into the myth of empowerment. Don't get me wrong. You should empower your people. Right? When I talk about the myth of empowerment, I mean the idea that somehow the way to empower people is to leave them alone to manage themselves. Right? That somehow the myth of empowerment is if you leave people alone to manage themselves, then they'll do their best work. That's only true on that planet where everyone gets a trophy. Here on planet Earth, most people do their best work when they have guidance, direction, support, and coaching from a more experienced person. Sink or swim is not empowerment, it's negligence. Reinvent the wheel is not empowerment, it's negligence. Hey, do it however you think it should be done, even though it's not really up to you. It's not empowerment, it's negligence. Real empowerment takes hard work. It requires a manager who's willing to roll up his or her sleeves and engage in a regular, structured dialogue. That takes time. It's high maintenance. Now, some leaders will say, oh yeah, okay, I made it so far, but pretty soon you get in there and you start managing people, and you figure out what works for Mr. Red doesn't work for Ms. Blue. And what works for Ms. Green doesn't work for Mr. Brown. So, I get in there and start managing people, and pretty soon, Mr. Red's saying, it's not fair. You're favoring blue. Right? And you're sitting there thinking, well, yeah, I'm favoring blue because blue does more work than you. Blue comes in early, stays late, bends over backwards, and jumps through hoops. Yes, I'm favoring blue. You finally noticed. Right? And see, this is when managers buy into the myth of fairness. The myth of fairness is that somehow the way to be fair is to treat everybody exactly the same. But that's only fair if you're running a commune. Right? And if you run a business, you got to do more for some people and less for others based on what they deserve. Now, how many of you have run into this situation where somebody knocks on your door and they say, excuse me, there's something I wanted to talk with you about. I don't think I can work on Thursdays anymore. And well, gee, if I did that for you, really? Are you a communist? Why would you do it for everyone? Right? Why would you do it for everyone? There's nothing fair about treating low performers and high performers the same. What's fair is doing more for some people and less for others based on what they deserve. But it's high maintenance. It requires rolling up your sleeves and engaging in a regular dialogue where you're making expectations vividly clear every step of the way and you're keeping score. Now, some leaders are afraid that if they're strong and highly engaged, everyone will think they're a jerk. Now, I have managers say that to me all the time. If I really roll up my sleeves and get in there and start managing people, then they won't like me. Right? We've all felt that. Well, I'll tell you something we've learned. This is from the front lines, from our research. When employees think their immediate boss is a jerk, it's almost always because the boss is too weak, not because the boss is too strong. Here are the 5 most common jerk boss scenarios. Oh, yeah, I should say, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. If you recognize yourself in any of these, please forgive me. We all fall into these scenarios. Here are the 5 most common jerk boss scenarios. Number 5 is the boss who doesn't keep track of who's doing what, where, why, when, and how. doesn't really keep track of the details, but shows up on the scene every once in a while and makes a big decision that affects everyone. That's going to make you seem like a jerk. Number 4, this is the boss who pretends things are up to people when they're not. Hey, take a crack at it, even though it's not up to you. But then the boss comes back a couple days later, or sometimes a couple weeks later, and says, what are you doing? Why are you doing it that way? Didn't you know we have a checklist for that? I promise you, that person's sitting there thinking, hey, why didn't you give me the checklist in the first place? Number 3, this is the boss who lets small problems slide because you wouldn't want to come down on every small problem. That might make you seem like a jerk. But small problems fester and grow and turn into bigger problems. And by the time they get back on the boss's radar screen, they may be very big problems with very real consequences. Hey, this has been going on for 3 months. You've been coming in late every other day for 3 months. Well, yeah. I thought we had an understanding. I come in late every other day. Didn't you notice my hints and dirty looks? I don't know, I thought you had a stomachache. Not my reader. That's going to make you seem like a jerk. The number 2 jerk boss scenario, this is the boss who pretends to be friends with employees even if they're not. Now, don't get me wrong. You work with people for days, weeks, months, years. You form friendships. In my world, that's a complication. Right? Because if you have authority in relation to someone else's livelihood, that's going to complicate a friendship. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the boss who doesn't really know how to talk about the work. So they shoot the breeze. Hey, how was your weekend? I understand you got a bike. I was thinking about getting a bike too. Blah, 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 blah. Right? And then the work gets serious. They get all serious. And what happens is, the friend starts to seem like more and more of a fake. And the boss starts to seem like more and more of a jerk. But you know what the number 1 jerk boss scenario is. You already know. Right? This is the boss who soft pedals his or her authority. Hands off, hands off, hands off. Don't call me your boss. We work together. Right? Until they get angry. And then they come in and choose someone out, maybe the wrong person at the wrong time about the wrong thing. That's going to make you seem like a jerk. See, here's what we've learned. You want your direct reports to have the kind of respect for you. And you want to set them up for success. Nobody needs a weak leader. Nobody wants a weak leader except for low performers who are hiding out. But nobody needs a weak leader. And over and over and over again, we see that when there's things going wrong in the workplace, these 27 challenges that come up over and over and over again, whether it's a new manager who's having a hard time taking charge, right? Or whether it's a manager who has direct reports who, gee, they don't know how to manage themselves. They don't show up on time. They're not organized. They don't know how to solve problems. Or if it's a manager who's got people who are working too slow, or working too fast, or working with a bad attitude. These challenges that come up over and over and over again. Of course, every single story is unique. But they all succumb to the withering medicine of the old-fashioned basics. The fundamentals of management applied consistently. And there's no shortcut. And sometimes I'll say this to leaders and managers. There's no shortcut. You want to take charge? You want to get rid of 9 out of 10 problems in your workplace? You want to speed people up, improve quality, get rid of attitude problems? You want to keep the high performers longer and push out the low performers? You do not need some newfangled trick. You got to roll up your sleeves and commit to strong, highly engaged dialogue with every single person. Sometimes I say that. That's the big punchline, right? And I see a wave of relief go across the room. Right? Because leaders say, oh, all right, I talk to my people every day. I already do that. I talk to my people every day. How's everything going? Everything on track? Any problems I should know about? How's everything going? Everything on track? Any problems I should know about? How's everything going? Everything on track? Any problems I should know about? Do those questions sound familiar? Those are the three most common questions managers ask their direct reports. And those questions tell you nothing! Zero, nothing! How's everything going? Just fine. Everything on track? It better be. Yes, sir. Any problems I should know about? Which is another way of saying, fix them before I have to deal with them. I talk to my people every day. And then do you wonder why they call you at 2 o'clock in the morning? Everything's melting down! But I've asked you every single day. It's because those questions tell you nothing. They're a gesture. They're a gesture. We call it managing by tag. You'd be better off pulling everybody together every morning and playing tag. Because at least you get everybody's heart going. What are the right questions? The right questions are, what did you do? How did you do it? What are you doing? How are you doing it? What are you going to do next? What steps are you going to follow? Let's write that down. I'm writing it down. Maybe you should be writing it down. And let's talk about it tomorrow and see how you did. Or the day after tomorrow. Or next week. See, here's what we've learned. It's not just that 9 out of 10 leaders, managers, and supervisors are not engaged in high-structure, high-substance dialogue with their direct reports, and the business costs are astronomical. It's not just that. But most managers think they're doing pretty well. But we do assessments, and managers assess themselves, yeah, I'm pretty good. One of the best, or pretty good. Why do they think they're pretty good? Because most leaders and managers spend a lot of time managing people. And by the way, the ones who say, I don't have time for this, it turns out they spend more time than anyone else. It's just they spend most of their management time in crisis mode, solving problems that never had to start in the first place. And by the time they get through putting out the fire, then they're really behind. Then they really don't have time. And what we've learned is that when there's not an acute problem, most managers spend most of their management time in 4 ways. The first way is tag. How's everything going? Is everything on track? Any problems I should know about? The second way is in mediocre team meetings. The third way is in a tidal wave of email. And the fourth way is coming out of the well-intended, my door is always open. Let me know if you need me. But this leads to what we call management by interruption. How many of you would say that one of your biggest challenges when it comes to time management is you get interrupted all the time? How many of you would say that? Raise your hands if that's true. Raise your hand if you get interrupted a lot. Not actually raise your hand. Because I can't do a poll in the room if you don't raise your hand. Right? And what managers say, oh yeah, my door is always open. They know if something goes wrong, then they'll hear from me. Right? We call that bad news management. Because it means every time they see you coming, it's bad news. Right? So, well, what if something goes wrong and you don't know about it? Well, I tell them, my door is always open. And this leads to something pops into your head, you call. Something pops into your head, you poke your head in the cubicle. Something pops into your head, you send an email. And likewise, something pops into their head, they call. Something pops into their head, they poke their head in your office. Something pops into their head, they send you an email. Nobody's at their best when they're being interrupted. Why do we spend so much of our management time playing tag, being interrupted, or solving problems that never should have happened in the first place? What's the answer? See, the way most leaders lead, it'd be like if you were out of shape and you decided, I'm going to get in shape. And so I'm going to go run 10 miles right now. Right? You come limping back. Oh, that hurt my body. And That didn't make me stronger, it made me weaker. I'm not going to do that again. But see, if you wanted to get in shape, what would you do? You take a walk every day. Take a walk every day. It's not exciting. It's boring. But that's what works. And, you know, you take a walk every day. Oh, no, Dan, it's time to work out. But then some people take a walk every day. And they're going to live long. I realize some people get hit by a bus. Track! I wasted all that time exercising. But you can't plan to get hit by a bus, right? And getting in shape as a manager is a lot like getting in shape physically. You got to take a walk every day. You got to take a walk every day. Whether you have some, you got to think about your problem child in the workplace. If you don't have a problem child, think about that superstar you're worried about losing. If you don't have one of them, think about that middle-of-the-road performer you'd like to help develop and make better. Give me the challenge, and I promise you, the number one thing you can do is commit to high-structure, high-substance dialogue. You got to start meeting with that person every day, every other day, once a week, every other week. And what do those conversations need to be about? Let me remind you of the broad performance standard. Let's talk about clear expectations. What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? What steps are you going to follow? And let's figure out how we're going to keep score so that you can get recognition and reward for what you're doing. You got somebody with a bad attitude? Right? You can't just talk to that person when he or she is having a tantrum. But you got to talk to that person every day, or every other day, or once a week. And you don't want to talk to that person about, you got a bad attitude. You got to talk to that person about how important it is to manifest a good attitude. Hey, yesterday when you walked in, I noticed that you slammed the door. You came stomping across the floor. And then you sat down at your desk and said, this place is horrible. Let me tell you what I'd like to see you do tomorrow. Tomorrow? Let's spell out some expectations. I'd like to see you come in the door, squeeze that door handle tight, and extend your arm until it makes a soft click. Then walk heel-toe, 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 heel-toe. Sit down at your desk. And if you feel an impulse to say something negative about this organization, I want you to bite the back of your tongue. Right side, left side, totally up to you. That's where you have creative freedom. And if you still have the urge, and you say pins and needles, needles and pins, a happy person is one who grins. If that doesn't work, go out in the parking lot and take a walk. Here, I made you a check. Let's talk about it tomorrow. Right? Think about the person who comes in a little bit late every other day. Oh, how do you deal with that? It's regular, structured dialogue. Some managers say, yeah, I schedule a meeting every morning for 7 o'clock. Right? And what happens with that person? The person still comes in at 10 after 7. Right? When you talk to somebody about being late, usually. When they're late, right? It's too late. You're late. I know. Too bad. I'll try. It's too late. But the time to talk to that person is every afternoon on their way out the door. And listen, tomorrow we start at 7 o'clock, right? Oh, yeah, I know. But after all, you've had a hard time getting to work at 7 o'clock. Oh, yeah, that's true. Well, let's talk about that. I want to set you up for success. How long does it take you to get to work? 30 minutes. How long does it take you to get ready in the morning? 45 minutes. What time do you set your alarm for? 6 o'clock. Finish your problem. Let's take out your phone right now. Let's take out your phone right now. I'm going to set your alarm for 5:40. I'll record a wake-up call with my voice. Rise and shine, the light has come. Here you go. It's all yours, kid. See you tomorrow. That person's not going to be late. If that person's late tomorrow, You know, you got a problem, my friend. It's one person at a time, one day at a time. Don't get me wrong. Every single person in the workplace is his or her own unique story. Every person you got to customize. That's part of the high maintenance. But here's what doesn't go away. One person at a time, one day at a time. Regular structured dialogue. Every day, every other day, once a week. Mark my words. You do that for a few weeks, and you will see most of the problems in your workplace will dry up and blow away. Now, everybody's different. Right? You've got to ask yourself, who is this person? High performer, low performer, somewhere in the middle? Who is this person when it comes to productivity? Who is this person when it comes to quality? Who is this person when it comes to attitude? Now, if you don't know the answers to those questions, then you're definitely too hands-off. But you start talking to these people, the people who report to you, the people who look at you and say, this is my boss. The people who rely on you to set them up for success in their effort to make contributions to your bottom line, in their effort to feed their family. You have a lot of power. Don't take it lightly. You got to customize your approach to every person, but every person needs your leadership. Why am I talking to you? What's your goal with this person right now? Some people whom you may have written off as low performers, if you talk to them every day, you might find out that person wasn't a low performer, that person just needed a lot more guidance. Now, some people, it would be ridiculous if you talk to them every day. Hey, let's talk about my performance. I prepared a PowerPoint presentation. You know, that person you can talk to every other week. Be nice to her because she's going to be your boss in a couple of weeks. Everybody's different. What everybody needs is high structure, high substance, clear expectations, regular candid feedback, and somebody who's keeping score. It's just back to fundamentals. That's what most leaders need. And if you're running a large organization, you're leaders. You got to lead your leaders back to fundamentals. If you lead leaders who lead leaders, you got to lead your leaders to lead their leaders back to fundamentals. If you lead leaders who lead leaders who lead leaders, and so on. Strong, highly engaged leadership will get you 9/10 of the way. And 90% is a lot of progress for just rolling up your sleeves and getting back to the basics. Before I leave you, because I don't have time for thoughts, comments, and questions, I hereby offer to be your personal management consultant. You send me an email, I will respond. Now, I have to warn you, this is how I lure people into my interviewee database. But here's my email. It's Bruce T. at RainmakerThinking.com. Bruce T. at RainmakerThinking.com. You send me a question, I will respond, and I will engage with you in a dialogue by email as long as you're willing to keep talking to me. That's how I stay plugged into the real world. That's how I keep learning. And it's also my way of adding a little extra value and saying thank you for having me here today. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Bruce. That was fantastic. Great information. I saw a lot of people taking notes. I saw a lot of people taking the email address. I think that's how I know it's been a successful meeting. So thanks again for this. Thanks so much, Premier, for this partnership. We really appreciate this. This is something I think that really sets us apart as an organization. It was something I wanted to get to at a certain point. So thanks again for that. Make sure that as you leave, you get your giant umbrella. Right? This is from Premier. It's fantastic. It's got a really nice rubber grip to it. So make sure you get this on your way out. Just a couple things I think I'm going to mention before we go. Actually, I think just one thing. This is our Business Expo, September 25th. This will be in place of a membership meeting next month. There's been such tremendous demand in terms of booth space. We've actually added 13, is that right? We've added 13. So if you'll go back to that, there we go. So that's September 25th from 3 to 7. We've got a great speaker that's going to come in and talk about working throughout different generations. 4 to 7 is actually the, go back to that, there we go, is actually the mixer. So again, we want to thank everybody that's sponsored, that's going for a booth. It'll be a fantastic event. We'll be back in October to a regular meeting. Well, actually, if you haven't seen this program, it's fantastic. There's a guy at Vanderbilt who's developed a program around leadership lessons from the Battle of Franklin. We'll be doing that in conjunction with the 150th year anniversary of the Battle of Franklin. So that's October. Anyway, thanks so much for coming. Thanks so much, Bruce, Premier, for this, and we'll see you guys later.